There are moments when quitting feels easier than holding on. Moments when your hands are trembling, your mind is clouded, and your heart wonders if the struggle is even worth it. But I want to speak to that exact moment, the one where you feel like walking away. Because that's where the miracle often begins. You see, quitting is always an option, but it's rarely the right one. Pain has a voice, but so does purpose. When you stop in the valley, you miss the view from the summit. And here's something you need to remember. The deepest battles are often fought right before the breakthrough. Resilience is often portrayed as a mental toughness or emotional armor, the ability to recover from difficulty, to bounce back after failure, or to keep going despite exhaustion. While all of that is true, there's a deeper layer many overlook. Resilience is not merely a trait you develop through life's trials. It is a gift seated within you by divine design. It's not just about what you can do, it's about what you've been equipped with since before you even knew you'd need it. From a spiritual perspective, resilience is evidence of a higher plan working through your weakness. You are not meant to carry every burden on your own. That persistent ability to endure even when you feel like you shouldn't be able to is a sign that your strength is being supported by something greater. It's the difference between running on your own energy and running on a divine reserve. That reserve is grace. It doesn't just catch you when you fall. It empowers you to rise when everything around you says you should stay down. The misconception many people have is that resilience is developed only through hard work or sheer willpower. Certainly, discipline plays a role, and there is growth in persistence. But even that persistence has a source. There are countless times when you've been at the end of yourself, emotionally drained, mentally overloaded, spiritually dry, and yet something inside you told you to try again. That something wasn't a motivational quote or a self-help trick. It was divine prompting. Look back at moments when life knocked you down hard. Maybe you faced rejection, betrayal, financial crisis, or illness. Maybe you lost something or someone dear. In those moments, it felt like everything was caving in. But then somehow you found strength you didn't know you had. You were able to keep going, not because you were strong, but because something greater than you was sustaining you. That is what makes resilience divine. It shows up when you have nothing left. It fills the gap between despair and hope. There is a passage in ancient wisdom literature that says, "My strength is made perfect in weakness." This reveals the paradox that real resilience doesn't start until human effort ends. The divine operates in the space of surrender. When you finally say, "I can't," that's when a new kind of strength begins to flow through you, one that you can't explain, but you can feel. It's not forced. It's not pretended. It's quiet but undeniable. This is why some people crumble under pressure while others seem to become stronger in the fire. It's not because one is better, it's because one is tapped into a deeper source. When you recognize that your resilience is not entirely your own, you stop striving and start trusting. You begin to understand that you are not being kept by your own effort alone. You are being upheld by mercy, grace, and purpose that stretch far beyond your current understanding. This divine resilience often shows itself through small acts. Getting out of bed when depression says stay down, showing up to work while battling anxiety, speaking kindly while grieving silently, forgiving someone who hurt you, or simply choosing to hope again after disappointment. These moments may seem ordinary on the surface, but they are sacred in their resistance. They are proof of the divine partnership operating in your life. You and grace together are pushing forward. It's important to note that resilience doesn't mean you won't cry, feel afraid, or get weary. It doesn't mean you'll always have a smile or a solution. It means that even in the midst of those emotions, you don't give up. You may pause, but you don't quit. You may be wounded, but you're still walking. That kind of resilience is not taught in textbooks. It is experienced through trials, and it is sustained by something sacred. So when you see someone enduring unspeakable hardship with quiet strength, understand that they're not just strong. They're being carried. When you find yourself standing after a storm, realize you didn't do it alone. Resilience is not just who you are. It's who walks with you through the fire. In the end, resilience reveals a divine truth. You are never abandoned in your struggle. Your endurance is not the absence of weakness, but the presence of a faithful strength that will not let you fail, even when you think you already have. Fatigue is a universal experience. Physical exhaustion, mental burnout, emotional weariness, and spiritual dryness are all indicators that the journey of life can be heavy. And when fatigue sets in, it's not just your body that feels the weight. Your hope starts to dim, your motivation fades, and your vision blurs. In these moments, what keeps a person going isn't just discipline or habit, it's faith. Not blind optimism, but deep, unshakable trust that even when everything around you is uncertain, something good is still working for you. Faith at its core is not an escape from reality, it's an anchor in it. When fatigue tries to convince you that you've reached your limit, faith quietly reminds you that you haven't. It doesn't deny your exhaustion. It simply refuses to let that exhaustion define the outcome. Fatigue may slow your steps, but faith gives each step meaning. It doesn't always make the path easier, but it makes the path endurable. When you are at your lowest, physically depleted, emotionally spent, spiritually confused, faith becomes the whisper in your soul that says, "There is more beyond this." It's the only voice that doesn't come from the mind, but from something deeper. It's not just believing that things will get better. It's knowing that you are being led by something greater than your strength. Fatigue can convince you to stop, to sit down in the middle of your journey and stay there. Faith challenges that. It says, rest if you must, but don't quit. Faith doesn't ignore rest. In fact, it encourages it. But rest in faith is different from giving up. Rest in faith is trusting that while you pause, the process hasn't. It's believing that forward progress is still happening, even when your feet aren't moving. In moments of overwhelming pressure, when you feel you have nothing left to offer, faith steps in with quiet defiance. It reminds you of your why, the purpose behind the pain, and more than that, it reminds you of the one who walks with you through the fire, who never sleeps nor grows tired, and whose strength is made perfect in your weakness. When fatigue says, "You can't do this," faith answers, "You were never meant to do it alone." Fatigue often brings confusion. It makes you question everything you're worth, your direction, your dreams. It blurs what once felt clear. In that fog, faith becomes your compass. It doesn't always point to a visible destination, but it always points forward. Even if the next step is small, faith urges you to take it. Because movement, however minimal, is proof that you have not surrendered to fatigue. Faith also redefines success. Fatigue says success is about speed, appearance, or performance. Faith says success is about obedience, consistency, and trust. When you show up to life despite feeling inadequate, when you give your best even when it feels like not enough, when you speak life over yourself even when you feel drained, that is victory in the eyes of faith. Some of the most powerful acts of faith are invisible: getting up one more time, praying again, believing for healing, hoping when hope hurts, smiling in the middle of sorrow. These moments don't always look strong from the outside, but spiritually, they're the equivalent of climbing mountains. Faith sustains what fatigue tries to shut down. Fatigue often tempts us to isolate. It whispers that no one understands, that you are alone in your struggle. But faith reminds you that presence doesn't always have to be seen to be real. It teaches you that the unseen hand of God is more consistent than the applause of people. That kind of awareness gives you the strength to keep going, not for applause or recognition, but because you are deeply supported by a divine source. Faith is not the absence of fatigue, it's the antidote to it. Fatigue may affect your body and your mind, but faith strengthens your spirit. And when your spirit is strong, you can overcome even the heaviest weight. There will be moments when all you can do is breathe. Even that, with faith, is enough. Because faith doesn't require perfection, it only requires permission. Permission to hold you up, to speak truth into your exhaustion, and to gently guide you forward when you can't carry yourself. So, while fatigue may tell you the journey is too long, too hard, too much, faith replies with calm certainty, you were created for this, and you will finish what you started. Because what sustains you is not how strong you feel, it's how strong your faith is. And that kind of strength outlasts every kind of tired. Endurance isn't built in comfort, it's forged in pressure. Life has a way of placing you in situations where every part of you is tested. Your patience, your courage, your determination, and most importantly, your faith. While your natural strength may carry you through the beginning of a challenge, it is faith that carries you through to the end. Without it, endurance runs dry. With it, your endurance becomes a testimony. Endurance is not just about lasting through difficulty. It's about how you endure. Are you bitter or hopeful? Do you merely survive, or do you grow stronger? Faith determines the quality of your endurance. It turns painful seasons into preparation. It turns delay into development. While endurance can feel like waiting in silence, faith adds purpose to the wait. It says, even this is doing something in me. When life presses you beyond your limits emotionally, financially, relationally, it's easy to want to give up. The pressure can feel like a weight too heavy to bear. In those moments, people often search for something external to hold on to: success, validation, relief. But those things don't always come quickly, or in the way we expect. That's why faith becomes essential. It's the internal anchor when external circumstances remain unpredictable. Faith doesn't promise that life will be easy. It never said you wouldn't be pushed to your limits, but it does promise that you won't be abandoned in your struggle. When your endurance is failing, faith steps in and whispers reminders of truth. This is temporary. You are not alone. Something greater is working behind the scenes. These reminders don't erase the pain, but they give you strength to push through it. Endurance without faith often leads to burnout, resentment, or emotional numbness. But endurance with faith leads to growth, resilience, and unshakable character. Faith gives you a reason to keep going even when nothing around you makes sense. It says, I may not understand the process, but I trust the one who holds the outcome. When you reach the point where you've tried everything, prayed, planned, worked, waited, and still see no change, that's where the truest form of endurance is tested. Will you keep showing up? Will you keep believing? Will you hold on even when it hurts? Faith doesn't always answer your questions, but it gives you peace in the middle of them. That peace becomes your strength. There are moments when you'll be tempted to quit, not because you're weak, but because you've been strong for too long. Faith sees that moment and meets it with grace. It reminds you that rest is not failure. Faith teaches you that pausing is not quitting, it's preparing. It's allowing divine strength to refill what life has drained. Faith also redefines time. While the world says results should be immediate, faith teaches you to see delay as development. What looks like a setback may actually be a setup. What feels like silence may be divine strategy. Faith gives you the endurance to trust timing you don't control, and to believe that what's meant for you cannot be missed, only matured. Endurance often feels invisible. No one sees your quiet battles, your silent prayers, your internal warfare. But faith assures you that those unseen efforts are not wasted. Every step taken in faith is a seed planted, and every seed planted in faith will produce fruit, not always immediately, but always eventually. Faith also sustains endurance by shifting your focus. It lifts your eyes from your current pain to a higher perspective. It teaches you that endurance isn't just about you, it's about the people you're called to help, the future you're called to shape, the legacy you're called to leave. Faith gives meaning to your struggle because it connects your endurance to a purpose bigger than yourself. Endurance is lonely at times. You may feel like you're the only one still believing, still trying, still pushing forward. But faith quietly surrounds you with spiritual support. It reminds you of others who endured, who made it, who were once in your shoes. Their stories become your strength. Their victories become your vision. In the end, endurance sustained by faith doesn't just help you survive, it helps you thrive. It turns pain into power, pressure into preparation, and waiting into wisdom. Faith doesn't always shorten the journey, but it strengthens your soul for every step. And when you finally cross the finish line, you'll realize it wasn't your strength that carried you, it was your faith, tested and true, that held you together when everything else was falling apart. Difficulty has a way of sharpening your senses. When the journey gets harder, when every step forward feels like a climb against gravity, something inside you begins to tune in more deeply. In those moments where logic fails and strength fades, encouragement doesn't always come from the outside. Instead, it rises silently from within, rooted in something higher than your circumstance. That something is divine. The harder the path, the more sensitive your spirit becomes to subtle signals of reassurance. When you're walking through valleys of confusion, isolation, or fear, you may not hear an audible voice or see a dramatic sign, but small whispers begin to surface. These aren't coincidences, they're confirmations, a verse that speaks exactly to your situation, a song that plays right when you're about to give up, a stranger's kind word that pierces your heart. These are not random. These are reminders. They are encouragements from above, delicately placed to remind you, you are seen, you are supported, you are not forgotten. As the journey intensifies, distractions start to fall away. You begin to separate what's essential from what's optional, and in that clarity, divine encouragement speaks more loudly, not always in volume, but in impact. The silence isn't absence, it's precision. It's in the quiet that the voice of peace grows louder. It's when everything else has been stripped that you start to hear what's always been there, the still, small voice guiding you forward. When life is easy, we often overlook small blessings. But in seasons of struggle, even the tiniest miracle becomes massive. A bill paid unexpectedly, a night of deep sleep after weeks of restlessness, a message from someone you haven't spoken to in years, just when you needed it. These events may seem small, but in the context of hardship, they echo loudly. They're not just encouraging, they're divine signals. They tell you, keep going, you're not walking this alone. This silent encouragement doesn't always remove the hardship, but it infuses you with the strength to face it. Sometimes the encouragement comes as renewed energy when you thought you had nothing left. Other times it comes as an inner calm that defies your circumstances. You may still cry, still wrestle, still question, but under all of it, there's a steady whisper, you will make it through. As challenges deepen, your dependence shifts. What once gave you strength, approval, success, recognition no longer satisfies. You start drawing strength from a deeper well, one not built on your effort, but on unshakable truth. The harder the test, the more you recognize the source of your strength is not within yourself alone. And that realization, though humbling, is empowering. It's the essence of silent divine encouragement. It shifts your focus from what's happening to you to what's happening within you. Encouragement from above also comes through timing. When you're about to quit, something shifts. Maybe not your situation, but your perspective. Suddenly, you remember why you started. You recall a promise. You feel a subtle push to keep going. That's not just memory, that's divine alignment. The timing of it is too perfect to be random. And the more you pay attention to these moments, the more you begin to recognize the fingerprints of something greater guiding your way. Another form of silent encouragement comes in the form of endurance itself. You've gone through things that should have broken you, but they didn't. You felt like you couldn't make it, but you did. That's not just resilience, that's divine preservation. Every time you survive what was sent to stop you, you're receiving silent proof that there's a greater force ensuring your continuation. In the midst of pain, encouragement also comes through memory. You remember how you've been carried before, how doors opened, how healing came, how restoration followed wreckage. These memories serve as spiritual fuel. They are proof that what you're going through is not the end, it's just another chapter. The harder the journey, the more important it becomes to remember the chapters you've already walked through, because those memories are divine reminders that the author of your story is still writing. Silent encouragement may not always make sense to others. It won't always be visible or shareable, but it's deeply personal. It shows up in your quiet moments of prayer, your daily battles, your late-night thoughts. And in those private places, it becomes the loudest affirmation you need, not because it shouts, but because it speaks directly to your soul. Ultimately, the journey's difficulty doesn't silence encouragement from above, it amplifies it. The more pain you face, the more precise and personal the encouragement becomes. The more darkness you walk through, the more clearly you begin to see flickers of light. And the more impossible things seem, the more meaningful it is to realize that those quiet nudges to keep going are not coming from nowhere. They're coming from the one who walks with you step by step, silently, powerfully, faithfully. There is a tension we all face between what we expect and when we expect it. We set goals, we make plans, and we craft timelines all based on our understanding of what should happen and when. But life doesn't always cooperate. Doors don't open when you knock, prayers seem unanswered, efforts don't produce results on schedule. That's where frustration sets in when your timing fails, and it's in those very moments that divine timing begins to do its work. Divine timing doesn't operate according to your calendar. It doesn't obey deadlines imposed by pressure, fear, or societal comparison. It moves with purpose, not speed, and often it seems late by human standards. But what feels like a delay is often protection. It's not that you're being ignored, it's that you're being aligned. When you don't get what you prayed for immediately, it's easy to assume something is wrong. You question your faith. You question your worth. But divine timing says, wait not because you're unworthy, but because I'm preparing you. Preparation is a hidden part of divine timing. While you're waiting for the promise is also being shaped to fit your future. Timing isn't just about readiness on your end, it's about alignment on every level. We live in a world obsessed with now. Instant results, instant gratification, instant answers. But divine timing teaches patience, not passive waiting, but active trust. It stretches your character while building your capacity. It refines your motives while strengthening your endurance. What you call a delay, heaven calls development. Sometimes the answer to your prayer is not no, but not yet, and that not yet is full of divine intention. It may be protecting you from stepping into something too soon. It may be shielding you from a version of success that would crush you because your foundation isn't strong enough yet. Divine timing allows blessings to arrive not just when you want them, but when you're ready to hold them with wisdom and humility. When doors remain closed, it can feel like rejection, but divine timing often disguises redirection as delay. The route you thought was right might not lead to your true purpose. The opportunity you thought you lost might only be a detour to something better. Every closed door is a message. Not this way, not yet. Trust me. And while it's painful in the moment, hindsight always reveals how perfect the process was. The silence of divine timing can be deafening. You may feel overlooked, forgotten, but silence is not absence. In fact, divine timing is most active in the seasons when you hear and see the least. It's in those quiet moments that the deepest work is being done in you and around you. Roots grow underground, foundations are laid in silence. The most significant shifts are often invisible until they're complete. There's a certain surrender required when trusting divine timing. It means letting go of control, of expectations, of how you think life should unfold. It means releasing your grip on the timeline and placing it in hands wiser than your own. This surrender isn't weakness, it's strength. It's the strength to wait in peace, to move when prompted, and to rest when needed. It's living with the awareness that delay is not denial, and detour is not destruction. Faith and timing are inseparable. Faith without timing leads to frustration. Timing without faith leads to fear. But when faith and divine timing walk together, they produce something beautiful. Peace in uncertainty, hope in waiting, and clarity in confusion. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not missing out. Divine timing makes sure you arrive exactly when you're supposed to, not a moment early, not a moment late. The breakthrough will come when your character can sustain it. The relationship will bloom when your heart is ready. The opportunity will present itself when your wisdom can handle its weight. Other people's timelines are not your measuring stick. Social comparison kills spiritual trust. What someone else receives early may not be designed for you. And what you're still waiting on may be more significant than you can imagine, which is why the wait feels so intense. The bigger the blessing, the more refined the timing. Sometimes you don't know why the delay happened until much later. And then you look back and say, now I see why it didn't happen when I wanted. It happened when I needed. That realization is the signature of divine timing, always late by the clock, always perfect by the heart. In divine timing, every second has purpose. Every pause is intentional. Every moment is calibrated to your growth and your good. You don't have to rush what's being prepared for you. If it's meant to be yours, no force can stop it. And if it's not meant to be, no effort can force it. Divine timing always overrides human deadlines because it sees what you can't and protects what you don't even know you need.